The day the village refused to bury a dead body. The rain stopped the moment the old man died, and before sunset, the entire village gathered around his body. The grave had already been dug, the drums were ready, the women had started crying. But just as 4 men lifted the coffin, the oldest elder raised his hand and shouted, "Put him down!" Silence fell immediately. Then he said something nobody expected. "We cannot bury him yet because we are still waiting for the one he killed." That night, nobody slept. In many villages, death is never just death, especially when the dead man was powerful, respected, feared, and loved at the same time. The old man everybody came to bury was known for settling land fights, ending family disputes, and feeding widows during famine. People called him the walking tree because anytime trouble came, people ran to him for shade. Even children feared to speak loudly near his compound, not because he beat them, but because his presence alone was heavy, strong, like someone who knew too many secrets. The morning he died, the entire village shook. Women rolled on the floor crying. Men removed their caps in silence. Even the village hunters fired gunshots into the air. Nobody questioned how he died. After all, he was old, and old people die. Or at least, that was what everybody believed, until the burial stopped. The village square became crowded. People whispered in groups. Children were dragged indoors. Even the drummers quietly packed their drums aside. The old elder who stopped the burial stood in the center with shaking hands. Nobody rushed him. Nobody interrupted him, because the man was older than memory itself. His voice was weak, but feared. Finally, one young man stepped forward. "What are we waiting for?" The elder looked at the coffin, then slowly answered, "Before a body enters the earth must first accept it." Nobody understood. Then another elder spoke quietly. "There are signs that a dead man still has unfinished blood behind him." Murmurs spread immediately. Some women covered their mouths, others moved backward from the coffin. The dead man's first son became angry. "What are you people saying? My father lived a clean life. He helped this village." The old elder stared at him for a long time. Then he asked softly, "Did he ever tell you what happened 20 years ago near the river?" The son froze, because everybody knew about the river story, but nobody ever spoke of it openly. 20 years earlier, a young hunter disappeared. He left home one evening and never returned. The village searched for days. Nothing. No body, no blood, no footprints, only his broken hunting bag near the river. People assumed evil spirits took him. After some months, life continued, but one person never recovered: the hunter's younger sister. Every market day, she sat beside the road staring at people, waiting, hoping, refusing to believe her brother was dead. Years passed, her hair turned gray. Still, she waited. And strangely, the respected old man who had just died was the one feeding her every month. Nobody questioned it. People called it kindness. But now, inside the village square, that kindness suddenly felt different. The elder pointed at the coffin again. "The dead cannot be buried while their shadow still walks." Thunder rumbled in the distance, even though the rain had stopped hours ago. The dead man's second son shouted angrily, "This is madness! You want to disgrace our father after death?"
But before anyone could answer, something happened. One of the women preparing the body suddenly screamed. Everybody turned. The white cloth covering the dead man's face had fallen by itself, and for the first time since morning, people saw his expression clearly. Fear. Not peace. Fear. His eyes were slightly open, like a man who died while looking at something terrible. The women ran outside immediately. Even the strongest men stepped back.
The old elder whispered, "He has seen the one waiting for him." That night, the body remained inside the compound, unburied. Nobody was allowed near it except elders. No cooking happened in the village, no drums, no songs, only whispers and fear. Then, close to midnight, the hunter's younger sister arrived. The same woman who had waited 20 years. Nobody invited her. Nobody even knew who told her. She walked slowly through the crowd, carrying a lantern. When she reached the coffin, she stopped. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just deep pain. The kind that comes from someone tired of carrying sadness. Then she touched the coffin gently and said, "You finally followed him." The entire compound froze. One of the dead man's sons rushed forward. "What does that mean?" The woman looked at him. Then came the first conversation that hit the village like thunder. I begged him never to speak. He said if the truth came out, this village would burn with shame. The son's voice shook. "What truth?" The woman stared directly at the coffin. Then she answered, "Your father killed my brother." Silence. Heavy silence. Even the insects outside stopped making noise. One of the younger men shouted, "Lies!" But the woman continued crying softly. "He did not mean to kill him. They fought near the river. My brother discovered something. He threatened to expose it, and your father pushed him. He hit his head on a rock." The dead man's family stood frozen, breathing hard. The woman wiped her tears. I came to his house that same night. He knelt down. He begged me. He said if people found out, war would start between families. So I stayed quiet. The oldest son whispered weakly, "And all these years?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes. He fed me every month because guilt never left him." The compound exploded into confusion. Some people defended the dead man, others became angry. But the elders remained silent, because deep down, they already knew. One old elder finally spoke. "That is why the earth rejected him." Then, another shocking thing happened. The hunter's sister brought out an old red cloth from her bag. Inside it was a small carved bracelet. The entire village recognized it immediately. It belonged to her missing brother. She held it tightly and said, "He gave me this before he died. He said if the man who killed him ever dies before confessing, his spirit would refuse burial." Fear spread across every face. Even the dead man's sons began crying quietly. Not from shame alone, but from the weight of realizing their father carried this secret 20 years. Close to dawn, the oldest son entered the room where his father's body was kept. Only him. Nobody followed. When he came out again, his eyes were red. He gathered everybody outside. Then came the second emotional conversation. My father was not a perfect man, but he was still my father. He carried this guilt alone until death. The hunter's sister looked away silently. Then the son walked toward her slowly, and to everybody's shock, he knelt down. The son of the most respected man in the village knelt in the mud and said,
I cannot return your brother, but if forgiveness still lives anywhere inside you, please let my father rest." People started crying immediately. Even some elders wiped their eyes. The woman stared at him for a very long time. Then finally, she spoke softly. "For 20 years, I prayed for the day truth would come out. Not revenge, just truth." She looked at the coffin one last time, then nodded slowly. "Let him go." At that exact moment, a strong wind entered the compound. The lantern near the coffin went off by itself, and somewhere far in the village, a dog howled. The elders looked at each other quietly. Then the oldest among them finally spoke. "The earth has accepted him now." By sunrise, the burial finally continued, but differently. No drums, no celebration songs, only silence. As the coffin entered the ground, many people cried for two people that day, the respected man and the hunter whose body was never found. From that day forward, the village never mocked people carrying secret guilt, because they believed one thing deeply: a buried secret does not die. It waits, and one day, it speaks. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe now for more deep African folk tales, deep village mysteries, and emotional stories that feel real enough to happen beside your own compound. And tell me in the comments, if you were the hunter's sister, would you have forgiven him?